Hi, we've put this little video together especially for the Temple Square group as an introduction to the administration panel of Virtuoso. This is the home screen. This is the screen that you see when you first turn the organ on. It gives you the information that you normally mostly use in playing the organ: the memory level, the transposer, and the crescendo. It's worth noting that all of these values can be adjusted not only from the administration panel, but also from pistons on the console. The first thing to note is this little cursor. This points to the field on the screen that you can change. The cursor can move among the various fields. Notice the word cursor. This knob allows you to change where the cursor points. And here's how that's done. We just rotate it, memory level, transposer, crescendo. And pointing at the memory level now, we can change the memory level value. Notice we use the content knob to do that. We'll change the memory level. Up, down is counterclockwise. We can go to the transposer field, up, down, and select one of the 4 crescendos that are available on Virtuoso. On the bottom row of the panel, we have what we call context-sensitive buttons. You saw them change. When we went to memory level, we now have the ability to lock a memory level. We can copy a memory level, paste a memory level, clear a memory level. Let's talk about some of the other functions that you can do from Virtuoso. Notice that this panel is the only control panel on the organ. You can do everything you need to do from here: record, play, change users, diagnostics, everything. There's just a single control panel for Virtuoso. To make a recording, we press the record button, and this will take us directly to the record play screen. On the top right, it shows us the clock for the recording. The second line tells us there's no recording here. Notice this number. That number can change from 1 to 99. You can have 99 recordings up to an hour and a half each. You can record on a given recording, say number 1 today, say a movement of a symphony. You can come back tomorrow, and at the end of that recording, you can pick up and record the second movement of the symphony, and so forth. Let's make a quick recording. We'll go to the record screen, and it asks us if we really want to do this, and we'll say yes. And it now saves the entire memory of the organ, so that if you come back in 6 months and restore it, you've got exactly what was there when you made the recording. You can see the recording in progress now. I've been playing, and at any point you can stop, and the name is given 001. That's just a default name that corresponds to excuse me, the number up top. There's a couple of things of interest here that you can do. We can move up to the time field, and notice that the bottom row changes. We now see begin and end. We can go to the end of a recording. We can go to the beginning of a recording. We'll come back to that in a second. At the moment, we can play the recording. Do we really want to do that? Yes. And now it's playing what we recorded a moment ago. Now let's say here along around 10 seconds we hear something that we didn't really like or we want to study. We can stop, we can back up, and then we can play from that point. It's a great learning tool. Rather than have to waste time listening to everything, you can go to any point you want in the recording. You can get it down to 1/100th of a second for your start time. You can actually pick a time and start recording from there. Typically, you might go to the end and back up just a little bit, as we described earlier, and begin to record and do that, as we said, second movement of the symphony. We'll stop that there. So again, we can record, play, move to the beginning of the recording, move to the end of the recording, and we can go back home. So moving to the record screen, back from the record screen, a very simple process. To set a crescendo on the organ, we go to the crescendo setup screen, and you can pick one of the 4 crescendos. We'll move the cursor down to the crescendo stage, and now this context-sensitive bottom row gives us some other options. We can press this button to show what's on the crescendo. The draw knobs will pop out when we press show. We can adjust them any way we wish. We can then press save, and then we can go to the second crescendo stage. So this is much simpler than trying to adjust the crescendo shoe and have it stop and stay right on a specific stage. We can dial up any stage we want, press show to see it, adjust what we want, press save. If we ever get in a jam and just get hopelessly lost, we can press the restore button. That's this guy, and that will return us to the factory default, which brings us to the subject. A factory default crescendo and a factory default tutti are installed with the organ. The builder selects that at the time he puts the organ in, and we'll get to the concept of a new user or a different user in a moment. But anytime we create a new user, that default crescendo and that default tutti are automatically applied. So a new user doesn't have to go through the hassle of setting that up. So we'll adjust this back. We'll go home. So let's talk about a user now. Typically, a control system will give you, say, for example, 256 memory levels. It's your responsibility to say organist number 1 gets 1 through 10, organist number 2 gets 11 through 20, or however you want to do it. With Virtuoso, we have the ability to define a user, and that user gets every available memory level, gets a unique tutti, unique crescendo. In other words, every resource on the organ is unique to that user. When an organist sits down at the console, he can log in just like you do at a personal computer and have all of his unique registrations. Here's how you do that. We go to the user screen, and we can scroll through the different users. And when we get to the user that we're interested in, we simply press the select button. That's a button associated with the content knob. Press it, and that user is being loaded, and now that user has all the memory levels of the organ, all the tuttis, crescendos, everything associated with the entire organ. All the resources are available to that person. Now, we can create a new user. That is a function that an administrator performs. So we'll go to an administrator and we will log in by pressing select. Now this asks us for a password because the administrator is a special person that has rights and access to things we don't want everybody to have access to. So the password, not surprisingly, is an A. We'll enter that, and now the administrator is logged in. The administrator can create a new user by pressing New, and we'll give this person a name. We'll call him Bob, so we'll move the cursor over. B-O-B. And if we want to apply a password, we would come down to the second screen and enter the password. We ask them to confirm it by entering the password again. To be honest, very few people use the password, but it is available. When you're happy with it, or if you don't want a password, simply press enter and you get a new user. And to log that user in, just like we did before, simply press select. And now this new user, Bob, has all the memory levels, all the crescendos and so forth that are available on the organ. So let's go back home and let's go through a few of the other functions here. Down at the bottom, we can scroll through the different screens. There are more screens than are indicated here. These are the ones most commonly used, but there are others. And we'll just touch on those briefly. There's the user screen, the record play screen, the 2D setup, crescendo setup. You can copy a screen from a particular user, put it to another user. You can copy and paste the entire crescendo or a single stage of the crescendo. MIDI voices. You can pick the channel that you want a particular MIDI voice to be on. You can pick the division or the stop. You can pick the MIDI bank, which is actually selecting what group of voices, and within that group you can select the individual voice. And when you've made that selection, you press set. There's actually another MIDI screen available, but we won't get into that one here. It's a little bit more powerful and sophisticated than this one. You can adjust the brightness of the screen if you want. You can copy a user. This is how you back up all your registrations. You can restore a user, and we're back home. There are actually a number of other functions that are available on Virtuoso, but this should give you an indication of the power and the ease of use of the administration panel. So we'll stop here and invite any kind of questions that you have. Thank you.